Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. Welcome back to episode number 26 of Milk Carton Mysteries. I can't believe we're coming up to episode 30. This show is a lot of fun to do, and I look forward to doing it Monday through Friday, although I will fully admit I don't always get to it as fast or as quickly as I should, but I'm still trying to keep to everything I have promised you guys because that's how I roll. Today's going to be a fun episode because we've got a lot to talk about. A story coming out of Florida, because of course it's a Florida man story, about a guy who grabbed a boy and scared him by getting real close and then simply saying, "You have corona." I don't know why people do that kind of stuff, but that's something to talk about. We're also going to be talking about what could be perceived as a new break, a new clue in the nearly 50-year-old case of D.B. Cooper when he hijacked a Seattle-bound Boeing 727 out of Oregon back in Thanksgiving 1971. New clues, interesting theories. And finally today, this is a news story that I wanted to talk about because to me it's a mystery. I want to know why. The FBI used a federal SWAT team to storm the home, to raid the domicile of Jake Paul, a YouTuber with over 20 million subscribers. Now, Jake Paul has a bit of a sordid past, which we'll touch on today when talking about that. But still, what did Jake Paul do now? His whole family is messed up, in my opinion. If you haven't looked into them, don't. If you're not into this world, don't. But it's still going to be something we're talking about. So all of that and more in regards to my commentary here today on Milk Carton Mysteries. Be sure to follow me on social media at mjarbo on Twitter, at jarbomatt on Instagram. And of course, please join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/the Milk Carton. So let's dive right in, shall we? Florida, always a fun place to talk about. This is what always seems to happen in Florida, is that you have got a man by the name of Jason Andrew Copenhaver from Redington Shores, who has now been arrested on what they're calling a simple battery and disorderly conduct charge after an incident where this 47-year-old man, this grown adult, is accused of grabbing a child who was wearing a mask at a restaurant, getting right up to his face and telling him, "You now have coronavirus." And this is a headline that's making its way around, obviously. You know, man grabs boy, says he now has corona, and a lot of people are rightfully upset at this. This is a monstrous thing to do, especially right now, given the fact that 158,000 Americans have died, and we are not handling this thing well. And this is a mild story in comparison to coming out of even my state of Washington, where you have had people pull guns on other people for telling them to wear a mask. In Yakima County, Washington, just a few weeks ago, a woman had her throat slashed by a man at a store when she criticized him for not wearing a mask. I myself thought I was going to get into a fight with a couple people at a Dollar Tree when I gave them a hard time for not wearing a mask. Yeah, I had a Karen moment, I fully admit, but I live with it. I own it. I acknowledge it. You don't F around with corona. I don't know your political affiliation. I'm sorry. And this, I think, supersedes political affiliation, in my opinion. All right, this supersedes all of that stuff, in my opinion. And the reason why it supersedes everything has everything to do with the fact that we live in a world that is on fire, it feels like. Beirut yesterday, 100% on fire. It's crazy shit. I mean, watch that video, right? So anyway, let's get back to the story. Now, this is what they're saying happened. This is what the authorities are saying happened at 9:30 p.m. on Sunday night, which at a restaurant called Ricky T's, which just seems just amazingly Florida. Copenhaver approached the child who was at a table wearing a mask. This is according to arrest reports. But we don't know how old he is. The name, his age hasn't been released. He's a minor. That makes all the sense in the world. That's fine. Now, he asked if the boy was wearing a mask, and the boy responded that he was. That part kind of gets me a little bit because, I mean, clearly you could see if this boy was wearing a mask. I mean, it's not like asking what religion you are, or in some cases, what gender you are. It really is like you can physically see that he's wearing a mask. But this guy was intoxicated, so he wasn't paying attention. At this point, Copenhaver got right close to the boy, told him to take off the mask. When the boy refused, he grabbed his hand tightly, then closed in on the boy's face and told him that you now have the virus. And I can only imagine what that boy was going through that boy's mind. And it reminds me of like these, and I don't even know if these stories are real at this point. I heard about these when I was a kid. It almost comes across like urban, terrible folklore or just urban legends, stories you hear in certain cases. I don't know. But like when I was a kid, I heard stories about like people who contracted HIV and they went around and they like infected people willingly with HIV in order to be able to like not be in pain alone or to like make other people suffer because they were so upset. I mean, truly monstrous acts. Now, I was a kid. I don't remember like if this was real or if this was fake. But when this guy is grabbing a child and then pulls him in close and gets so close, and this is according to the reports here, gets so close that spit from his mouth went spattered on the boy's face. And he tells him, you now have corona. I mean, that kid has got to be freaking out because we know that the masks are meant to protect from like, the spit escaping, right? It's meant to protect people from you more than you from people, essentially. And this kid, what's he going to know about it? He's probably traumatized now. Anyway, so this is when he stumbles into the bar area where the staff just told him to sit down because he appeared intoxicated. I mean, he clearly intoxicated. And he wasn't wearing shoes. This is according to the report here. So he's drunk, not wearing shoes, and just told the kid he now has corona. This is when he got irate. This is when he got belligerent. And this is when he tried to strike a staff member. From there, other staff members walked him outside. And then they took his ass to the ground. They're like, sir, can you come with us, please? And then they went outside and they knocked him down to the ground until the cops showed up. Florida, they don't enough around. They're going to beat you up. Officer said that Copenhaver told them he didn't know if he had corona and he had never been tested. So this guy's just like going around getting pissed off at a small child wearing a mask, scares the boy, says, you now have corona. The cops ask him, well, sir, do you have corona? He's like, I don't know. I've never been tested because according to our president, testing leads to more confirmed cases. I really hate 2020. Oh my God. Do I hate 2020? At this point, he's been booked into the Pinellas County Jail and later freed after posting a $650 bond. The truth is, this guy most likely doesn't have corona. This guy most likely is just being the world's biggest douchebag. And I have no problem with him getting the right mockery he so aptly deserves for scaring this child. Do you not think that to kids like who don't understand what's happening, like their whole world just up and turned, that they're not going to like be somewhat traumatized from this anyway? And then you've got this crazy dude going over to some boy and like getting real in his face and then tells him like, you now have corona. And I've seen videos of like women coughing on other women. I've seen videos of like women who weren't wearing masks getting mad that people are saying, hey, wear a mask. And then they're all, you've got corona now. Like, what the hell? But this, of course, is the world we live in. Oh, my God. And we have really terrible leadership to back it up. That's the unfortunate thing. So I hope this guy has a bad day in court. I hope he gets busted. I don't care what anyone says about it. I do want to know what you guys have to say about it, which, by the way, I realized I accidentally went live on YouTube recording this, so I didn't realize I was live. So head over to facebook.com/groups/the milk carton and tell me how terrible I'm doing over there, but join the group. Now, I want to talk about this one because for me, as an Oregon-born individual, Oregon-born and raised individual, one of the greatest myths that we talk about in true crime, being from the Northwest, is always the D.B. Cooper case. It's always the D.B. Cooper case. It's nearly 50 years old, which makes me realize how close I am to 40, but it's nearly 50 years old. And it still captivates people. It still keeps people talking. And now there's been potentially a break, somewhat, of what's going on. So if you don't know about the story of D.B. Cooper, this is a story about a man who hijacked a flight, a Boeing 727 back in 1971, collected ransom money, and then just jumped out of the plane, never to be seen from again. And most of the money never recovered. So this goes back, like I said, Thanksgiving, the night before Thanksgiving, 1971. A man calling himself Dan Cooper, wearing a black tie and suit, boarded a Seattle-bound Boeing 727 in Portland and told the flight attendant he had a bomb in his briefcase. He then gave her a note demanding money. After the plane landed, he released the 36 passengers in exchange for $200,000 in ransom and parachutes. The ransom actually was paid in $20 bills. You got to keep those low denomination bills, man. Harder to track, harder to trace. Although, to be fair, like if I was like the government on this one and like the guy demanded a parachute, I would like, I'd cut a hole in the parachute. Like, you ain't going nowhere. Money can survive a 30,000-foot drop. You, on the other hand, nope. But, back in the 70s, hijackings were a pretty common occurrence. They were a pretty common occurrence. So maybe they thought, we'll get him. Now, the hijacker at this point, Dan Cooper, DB Cooper, ordered the plane to fly to Mexico. But near the Washington-Oregon border, he jumped out and he was never heard from or seen again. Now, this story has captivated like conspiracy theorists and true crime aficionados and mystery junkies for almost a half decade. But the FBI has never been able to crack it. The FBI has never been able to actually crack it. So what happened was in 2016, they closed the case. They did. They closed the case in 2016 without ever truly identifying a suspect. A suspect at this point who was most likely dead. But the cold case still lives on in many ways. And now a scientist has actually uncovered new clues about the DB Cooper case by looking at minuscule deposits of algae on the money. Think about this. The technology we have now can look at the algae that's on the money and determine a lot of data. So this is what we know. This research, which was published recently in Scientific Reports, looked at diatoms, which are small deposits of algae on the money that was found buried on the shore of the Columbia River near Portland, Oregon in 1980, 9 years after DB Cooper hijacked a plane with 36 passengers. Okay. Now, this is what they say in the study. The Cooper bill contained diatoms for a summer bloom species, suggesting that the money was not directly buried dry, and the immersion happened months after the late November hijacking. This finding rules out a majority of current theories related to the crime and proposes diatoms as a feasible methodology to constrain seasonal timelines in forensics. So what I take from that is that it wasn't buried dry. So the money was wet, and that it happened months after the hijacking. So I don't know why it would be buried months after the hijacking. There's been a lot of rumors and speculation. In fact, there was a movie that came out, I want to say in 2005, called Without a Paddle, that touched upon this theory where DB Cooper had actually died in the mountains. He had landed in the Cascades and he had died out there. And this can actually support one of those theories where maybe he had, in fact, buried the money and like just never came back for it, I mean, clearly, or someone buried it. Someone found it and buried it for some reason, but they found it alongside the Columbia River in a place called Terra Bar. So it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing because they found it in 1980. So 9 years later, just randomly popped up, and it goes on to say here. Now, the FBI did release a bunch of information. They released the sketches and all that jazz, hoping to get information, but they've never been able to. But the study's lead author, Tom Kay, did say here that he used a microscope to identify the de minimis deposits after initially examining the bills 12 years ago at the behest of the Seattle FBI. So they were still looking into it 12 years ago, and they were trying to use science, but now he's got a better idea. So he says here, so suddenly the light bulb came on, and we wondered if we could use these different species of diatoms that we found on the Cooper bills a long time ago to determine when the money got wet and when the money landed on the bank of the Columbia. He says, the diatoms that we found on the Cooper money are a spring species, noting that it means that the money was in the river months after Cooper jumped. They bloom in the spring. They don't bloom in November when Cooper jumped. Now, Kay did suggest that since there was only one season of items on the bills, it's possible that the money came out of the water and landed on the Tina bar after a short period of time. So the money had been submerged for 5-6 months. I mean, it went through the entirety of winter and it went into spring and before it reemerged. I don't think that's possible. I mean, this was like a stack of money. What they found was a stack of bills, a pretty decent sized stack of these bills. So that seems kind of weird to me. That is, unless it was a plant. That is, unless it's a plant. I mean, if DB Cooper would have landed in Portland, Oregon, right around Portland, Oregon, Columbia River area, he could have hung out there for months. And that's, again, that movie Without a Paddle kind of indicated that he had like hung out there. So he could have hung out there for months. And then before escaping to throw investigators off the track, he buried the money in 1972 in Tina Bar, thinking one day somebody would find it and throw off everything. Now, it's an out there theory. It's probably not even remotely true. I don't know at this point. Anything is possible. We're literally dealing with like Schrodinger's DB Cooper ransom money situation. Now, he does say here, this is going on from Kay. The money was not floating in the water for a year. Otherwise, we would have seen diatoms from a full range of the year. We only saw them from the springtime bloom. So this puts a very narrow range on when the money got wet and was subsequently buried. It's a very narrow range, which is very true. It's a very narrow range. And that's not a lot to go on, but it's something to go on. And this is one of those cases that while it's closed is always going to be on everyone's mind who likes true crime and likes these unsolved mysteries. Now, no trace was actually found of DB Cooper ever. He's been gone. I mean, where the money was discovered was 5 miles downriver from Vancouver, Washington, which is right across the Columbia from Portland. I grew up in Portland. I spent a lot of time in Vancouver as a kid. It's a spread out area. But if you have a boat, you can get away. You can go, north, you can go south. The Columbia goes all the way up into Washington by a good distance. So you could easily get away. But I think it's possible that they came back and they buried the money at some point, because it just seems like it would have had to have been buried somehow for this kid to find it 9 years later. It would have had to have been out there. No one's going to sit there and find a stack of bills and then just go and bury it themselves and go, I don't want it, No, not one bit. But as always, I do want to hear your guys' thoughts and your guys' opinions on this one, because this story is always fascinating to me. So let me know down in the comments on YouTube, or of course, facebook.com/groups/the Milk Garden. Now, finally, this is the big story of the day. I mean, not as big as like the Beirut situation, which is, oh my God, that video is insane. Fireworks my ass, right? But anyway, this is a big story if you happen to be on the side of YouTube. And as a person who spent a lot of time on YouTube, this is where I'm fascinated, because I want to know just what the hell Jake Paul did. Because right now, FBI agents, including a SWAT team, served a search warrant at the home for Jake Paul. Part of me, I just want to put this out there right off the bat. Part of me thinks this is one of those pranks. Like Jake Paul would do something in order to make the FBI have to raid his house, to raid his mansion, in order to be able to film it for a video. Like, knowing how far the Paul family goes in order to maintain any kind of relevance and controversy, including the faking of the dead body from his older brother a couple years ago. And yes, that whole situation was fake. I wouldn't put it past them. Now, this is what they're saying. The FBI executed a search warrant this morning at 6 a.m. at a Calabasas, California mansion in connection with an ongoing investigation. This is what the FBI spokesperson, Laura Imler, is saying. A judge has sealed the search warrant affidavit, and they did say that they could not reveal the nature of the investigation or the person it was served on. So we don't know what it is, and we don't know who it's for. For those of you who don't understand, Jake Paul runs this like Team 10 house. I don't know if it's still active, but last I saw it was. Basically, it's a mansion filled with other teenage douchey YouTubers that do teenage douchey YouTube things. And that ends up being like the whole, their whole thing. So it could be anyone in there. It could be illicit material. It could be drugs. It could be guns. It could be child pornography. It could be a sex trafficking ring. All of those, I'm not even lying when I say this, all of those are potentially possible explanations. And I wouldn't put it past Jake Paul under any stretch of the imagination. He hasn't earned any bit of goodwill or good faith from me at all. Now, the city of Calabasas also said in a statement that it was Paul's home that was being raided by the FBI, which used the city hall parking lot as a staging area. Okay, fine, that's some useless information. But a video from local television news helicopters showed agents gathering several rifles from the sprawling property with a boxing ring and a hot tub in the backyard that appears in many of Paul's recent videos. So what the FBI, what the helicopter showed us, what the news helicopter showed us, was that the FBI was there and they pulled out a whole bunch of guns. I mean, I don't quite know what Jake Paul was planning, but it kind of feels like that could be part of it. Although, I mean, the FBI, are they working in conjunction with the ATF? Did they see any ATF agents on site that would be there if this was gun related? So I figured the ATF would be involved, but you don't hear much of the ATF these days anyway. So I don't know. Now, a SWAT team initially entered the property, but no arrests were made. And of course, emails that were left with Jake Paul's representatives, his people, seeking comment on the raid were not returned, which doesn't surprise me. They're going to keep it they're going to keep it close to their chest right now because they're going to let the media do what the media is going to do. They're going to let the media talk about this. They're going to let idiots like me talk about this. And then, of course, we're going to craft our own narratives. We're going to craft our own idea of what the FBI was seeking by doing an early morning raid on Jake Paul's mansion. We're going to be talking about why were there no arrests made? What did they find? Was it just the guns? Was that just removed for safety purposes? Are those legal firearms? I mean, we don't know. And then, of course, they're going to come out with some kind of it's my side of the story situation in order to absolutely capitalize on the free press. And we're talking millions and millions of dollars of free press this is going to get. And if he's done nothing wrong and it's just whatever, he'll be able to play it up. But the question then becomes, what exactly is that ongoing investigation? And what was the evidence that a federal judge agreed was enough to get a search warrant? That is my question. What exactly was it that they found that they had evidence of, enough evidence to get the search warrant? Because that detail is what will blow this whole thing open whenever it actually comes out. Otherwise, we have no idea. Now, for those of you, again, who don't know who Jake Paul is, he's 23 years old. He's got about 20 million YouTube followers. And he does a whole bunch of crap. If you just follow him, you know who I'm talking about. And of course, I love this article here because this article here also brings up, Logan Paul, which has similar influence and fame. But the thing is, when it comes to the Paul brothers, outside of YouTube, no one in the real world actually likes them. They just do whatever they can for fame. They do whatever they can for relevance. And in this platform, it makes the most amount of sense. But this is some serious shit, in my opinion. This is something that is serious. When you have got the federal government getting a federal search warrant to come and raid your home, you done goofed at some point in time. You done goofed, and it's not just like silly videos. This is some pretty serious shit. To quote Marty McFly, it's heavy, man. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. As always, I want to hear your guys' speculation, because this is where we get to the meat of it, all the speculation. So let me know on Twitter, @mjarbo, over on the YouTube page, obviously, if you're watching this live right now on YouTube, or facebook.com/groups/the Milk Carton. All right, guys, so that actually wraps up today's episode. These are the 3 stories I wanted to cover. There's always more that's going on, but these are just what popped up that I wanted to talk about. And of course, tomorrow, whole new variety of shows, whole new variety of topics, all sorts of new things to go over. Crazy murders. I guarantee you there's a couple that I haven't seen. I do want to dive into some missing persons and some cold cases, but those I might save for the weekend because I like to talk about the current crimes as they happen and discuss those with you. So as always, I truly appreciate you being here. I truly appreciate you spending your time with me and that you guys get in on the conversations and enjoy everything the way I do. As 2020 continues to just become this absolute, oh my God, dumpster fire, it's good to be able to have these conversations with people that are interested in the same topics. And so as always, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for listening. You can listen to this on iTunes, on Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Of course, Anchor FM /Milk Carton Mysteries. All right, everyone, have yourself a great day. Thank you again. Peace.